After 10 years of therapy and deep inner work, I've learned things about myself that I never ever expected to. As someone who was deeply introverted, painfully shy, crippled by fear and overthinking and procrastination, some of these things were freeing. Some of them were devastating, but all of them brought me home back to myself and who I truly am. And today I help others who feel stuck, broken, and like they don't belong, because that's exactly who I was. Now, these are 21 painful therapy truths. They're not tips, they're not hacks, but if just one of them lands for you, then it may change the way that you see yourself and the way that you relate to the world and the people around you. So, diving straight into truth number one, and I honestly believe this is the most powerful, and that is simply that you're not broken. You may feel like you're flawed. You may feel like you're not good enough, that you're different to everyone else around you, but that's not true. You may suffer from toxic guilt and shame, but that's literally trauma. These are adaptive mechanisms that were born from an early age to keep you safe when your needs were not met, when you had and suffered environmental failings. They are adaptive mechanisms. They're not who you are. You're not broken, and healing is possible for all of us. Truth number two: you won't find real, deep, lasting love until you heal. We unconsciously go out into the world and we find people who actually mirror our wounds. We're stuck in people pleasing. We don't really know who we are. So we try and be the person that they want us to be instead of the person that we truly are. And then weeks, months, years down the line, it all falls to pieces because we're not being true to ourselves. So until you heal, you can't find true, everlasting love. Truth number three: it's okay to say that your parents fucked up. So this work is developmental trauma. It's stuff that happened to you years ago when your needs weren't met, when you weren't seen beautifully and perfectly as you are, when you were scolded for being naughty, when you were always told that good boys and girls are seen and not heard. That leads to us splitting from the truth, cutting off from who we really are, trying to be the person that got love back then, but that isn't who we are today. And it's okay. It's not about blame. It's just saying that that environment, that upbringing wasn't right for us. You may have got food, you may have got water, you may have got shelter, but the emotional needs, the connection, all of that stuff that was missing. And that leads me on to truth number four, that sometimes even when we say we had a good childhood, that can actually be a trauma response. Because you may not have suffered emotional neglect, abuse, but you can still suffer from emotional invisible wounds that, as I've mentioned, will take you into adult life. These adaptive mechanisms, because when your needs aren't met, they literally warp the world around you and the way that you see the world. Number five is similar to the one around relationships, but you'll always settle for love that you think you deserve. Unhealed wounds lead us to settle for scraps of love, scraps of intimacy. We make excuses for our partners. We're not able to communicate our needs and what we want. Perhaps we need more love, we need more intimacy, we need more closeness, more connection, and more communication. But we tell ourselves, oh no, those are just pipe dreams, or oh no, that's not really for me. But when you heal, when you're in touch with what you actually need and can communicate that to another human being, then that's where these powerful shifts happen, and that's where true love lies. Number six: you won't step into your true power or purpose until you heal. That part of you, that version of you who has a dream, has a goal, has a passion project, whatever it might be, will always remain hidden and crunched down, hunched, because you're ruled by people pleasing, by shame, by guilt, by fear, by overthinking, and by procrastination. You're terrified of showing up to the world because you learn to play it small, to not be who you are because that version of you was not okay. If you show who you truly are to the world, then you may be rejected or not loved. Number seven: comparison is a voice from the past. When you compare yourself to others around you, that you're not as wealthy as them, that you're not as successful as them, that you're not as attractive as them, that you're not as strong as them, fit, healthy as them, that's just a voice from the past. Those are the parts of us that never felt welcome, never felt good enough as a child, were never supported or nurtured. So we split. We felt that we weren't enough. And then we go into the world always chasing something else. Well, if I was more successful, if I was more rich, if I was healthier, stronger, then I'd be happy. But that's not true. You need to heal those inner wounds before that becomes the case. Number 8, people pleasing is a trauma response, and I guarantee you it will lead to burnout. There's this idea in modern society that it's altruistic to look after everyone else, to put everybody else's needs first before your own. But that's simply not the case. You have to take care of yourself. It's the old adage of put the oxygen mask on you first before the child if the plane's going down. People pleasing means that you're not putting your needs, who you are, your worth before anyone else. You're saying, actually, I don't matter. You do. I'll do whatever you want. It also means that you're not putting up healthy boundaries. You're not saying no to anything. You're taking on more work, more whatever it might be. You're piling it on, and you can see that will just bury you and it will lead you to burnout until you discover that you do have worth. You can say no. Number 9, the more you heal, the less you feel the need to be nice to others. Now, if you are a people pleaser, then being nice to others is kind of a given. It doesn't matter what people do, you're just nice to them. In our country, in the UK, in England, if somebody walks into us, we apologise first. It's that built in niceness that's drilled into us. We're always apologetic, we're always sorry for literally existing. And the painful part of healing is actually that you almost push people away that don't deserve to be in your life because you change and that niceness suddenly goes. You don't feel like you have to text people back immediately. You don't have to say sorry when you're not sorry. You're actually just becoming who you truly are for you. Number 10, you can't heal by simply thinking your way out of it. In this day and age, too much emphasis, there's too much information out there on mindset. If you can change the way you think and behave, then you can change your world, you can change everything about you. But that's simply not the case. You need to work with the entire system, the entire body. Trauma's trapped in our central nervous system. It's literally stuck, likely decades of pain. And until you look at those emotions that you're too afraid, too shameful to feel, then things won't change. Top down doesn't always inform the nervous system. We need to work top down and bottom up to make true lasting change. And that takes me on to truth number 11, and I don't have enough fingers, so I'm going to stop that now. You can't think your way to inner peace. So many of us crave more peace in our life, more gentleness, more joy, whatever it might be. And we think that if we start to create daily habits, again, if we use this, then we'll find more peace. But it's not something that you can look for, that you can hear. It's not a sensory thing. It's something that you feel deep within. And again, that happens when those painful emotions shift out of our bodies and our nervous system. And then we literally feel peace. We feel it in every bone, every fiber, every cell of our body. Number 12, healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to who you truly are. I think we have this notion that we feel broken, so we need to become somebody else. We need to not be ourselves. We need to be Dave down the road or Jane around the corner, because if we're more like them, then we'll be happier. But actually, the healing process is all about coming home to yourself, remembering that you're genuinely beautifully perfect exactly as you are, but all the stuff that you least like about yourself, that you hate about yourself, if you're anything like me, then that's the stuff that you need to look at to heal, because usually those parts we feel tremendous amounts of shame at. So once we start to look at them, those painful truths, it's a case of bringing that stuff, actually reintegrating it into ourselves, and then we're like, actually, yeah, I'm a good person. I'm a lovely person. I'm all right actually. And that's where the healing is really powerful. And that leads me beautifully to number 13, and lucky for some, and that's that your authentic self is simply buried. Who you truly are, if you crave authenticity, if you crave the truth, it's just that there's shame around actually who you are. I keep mentioning shame, but it's so powerful because it's the thing that suppresses our needs. It suppresses who we are. If you're authentically quite quiet and shy and introverted, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As soon as you own it, if you say, yeah, I'm quite quiet in social situations, then actually that frees up that energy, because the shame around being quiet and shy is gone. So you're free to be quiet and shy. And the opposite of that is true. If you're quite loud, quite garish, quite, center of attention, sometimes you might shame yourself from that as well, because from an early age you were told to be seen and not heard. I suffer from that. I'm quite an introverted extrovert. So I kind of suppress who I am a lot of the time, because I think, oh, don't be too much, John. But maybe that's okay for you. And again, that shame telling me, oh no, you shouldn't be too much. Well, that's not my voice. Sometimes I want to show up in the world and say, here I am. And that takes us to 14, really looking at shame. And shame isn't the truth, it's just simply a strategy. So shame is the very thing that from an early age we developed to stop doing the things that didn't get us love and attention. So as I mentioned, the terrible twos, we are taught that it's not okay to have autonomy. We have to be nice and polite, and then we get love. So we don't develop the healthy no. We don't develop the ability. It's healthy aggression to say, actually, this isn't okay for me. No, I don't want that. So shame is the lid that comes down to suppress that. So in adult life, we don't ask for what we want. We don't say no to things that aren't okay for us, because the shame is the thing that keeps us stuck. My teacher, Gaia, calls this the lid. It literally suppresses our life energy. And when you look at that shame, when you shine a torch on it, it starts to crumble, it starts to crack, and we start to discover who we truly are. Number 15 is something that I live in quite a lot, and that's that your freeze response isn't necessarily laziness. You've all heard, I'm sure, of fight, flight, and possibly freeze. Freeze is when our nervous system is overloaded and it goes into a state of collapse. Some people who come across as quite chilled are actually in a state of freeze. And this is, for me, perhaps if you're somebody who overthinks a lot, if you're quite logical, you procrastinate, more often than not, quite likely, your nervous system is just stuck in freeze. It's like I want to do this, but I'm afraid. It's stuck. So it's literally not a bad thing. If you are quite a lazy person and it's actually freeze, it's just your nervous system in a survival mode, and you just need to work out how to get through that. Sometimes it's processing the emotions, sometimes it's looking at the painful truth. For me, it's just going out and going for a walk. That literally, the act of movement gets me unstuck and out of a freeze. Number 16, you can't heal alone, but you can start alone. Now, we are pack animals, we're relational beings. We need others in our world to survive. Again, if you're like me, I was quite a lone wolf. I would push people away because it was too painful. I would always say things like, it's better for me to be on my own. I'm better alone. I'm a lone wolf. But you know what happened to that lone wolf? It died from hunger, starvation, because they don't hunt alone. But the healing journey is super powered. It's boosted when you work with others, when you have a therapist or a group of people that can support you. But you can start alone. You can process these things alone by listening to what I'm saying. Now maybe things have shifted and you think, oh, actually, maybe I'm not broken. It was just something that happened to me. Maybe that's not actually who I truly am. Maybe I have a choice in it. Maybe actually when I do feel something come up, my life energy, the truth of what I am, the truth of who I am, the truth of what I want, then maybe I can follow it. Or maybe I can just notice that when I want to do something, what's that thing that pulls me back and says, no, don't do that? Whose voice is that? What's the feeling? Is the heaviness? And we can just start to explore what's really going on for us and the truth. Number 17, this is a favorite of mine when anger comes up for people. So if you never feel angry, then that's likely a trauma response. I mentioned earlier about the terrible twos. The terrible twos at that age is where we learn autonomy, where we start to go out in the world with safety and explore, and we start to learn to say, no, that's not okay for me. I don't want that. Obviously, this isn't conscious, but unfortunately, we get scolded for that because, again, good boys and girls are nice and pleasant, and if we're not that way, then we just get told off. And of course, we have to have boundaries to an extent, but if our healthy no is not met and supported, then we don't develop that. We don't carry that into adult life. So actually what we do, that's related to our anger. So we suppress our anger. And of course, anger's very, very healthy, because if somebody's doing something to us that's wrong, that's not okay for us, and we can't say, politely fuck off, that's not okay for me, then again, it can lead to burnout, it can lead to stress, and much, much worse. So just noticing if you never get angry, a lot of the time that is being suppressed, shut down because anger wasn't okay. And maybe that's because it just wasn't okay, or maybe because you had a particularly angry parent or caregiver and there wasn't enough space in the household for anyone else to be angry. But just get curious. Do you suppress that anger? Because as I say in a session, when I see people start to get in touch with anger, it can be really powerful, but equally usually followed by sadness and pain because it gets shut down and suppressed quite quickly. And that leads us wonderfully onto the next point, which is probably 18, I'm losing count, which is if you're always angry, if you're always frustrated, I see this a lot in men, then that is a trauma response because it's misdirected anger. We're not pointing it at the original wound or the people that we feel angry with from our past. We're just firing out at everything. And I really feel this. I get angry at people driving on the road, people that don't indicate, people that don't do what I want them to do. And it's because I'm not communicating my needs. I'm pushing that anger down, and it's so, painful. And then it just erupts, but it's misguided. It's because usually I'm not saying my truth to the people that I need to, and I'm just like a hot ball of mess. And that can lead to quite severe immune diseases. When we suppress so much, if you think about that energy that wants to come up, when we suppress, it can lead to autoimmune diseases. So much can go wrong. This video is not long enough, but just start to get in touch with your anger, whether it be healthy anger, whether you're suppressing it or whether you're not allowing it to come up, and give a healthy no to people around you. Truth number 19. Now I'm actually recording this the day after the others because I completely forgot to include this one, so here we are. True lasting confidence can't be found by changing our mindset or by some kind of tips or tricks or faking it until you make it. We only ever become truly confident when we feel okay with who we are, when we feel safe with that person that we present to the world, when we're so embodied that we can walk out of our front doors and say, this is who I am. At that point, whether we're shy, whether we're extroverted, introverted, whatever it is, we can just go out to the world and say, this is me, this is who I am. And it doesn't mean that we have to stand on a stage and speak to thousands of people. It just simply means that we're strong and we're like a tree. Just, this is who I am, and that's okay. That's enough. Phew, we're getting there. I should have just done 7. The last 2 I think are quite painful, really honest and raw. So let's get into number 20. Healing hurts, but hiding hurts even more. This work, developmental trauma, is literally us abandoning ourselves. If you've listened to all of the points up to now, you might get the sense that it's us not being who we are. The training that I do currently with Gaia Perlini is being me therapy. And that is core in this work because we're not being us. We're not being true to ourselves. We're not being authentic. So the idea of healing, the idea of doing this work is extremely painful. But let me ask you this, is hiding more painful? Is never being you, never showing the world who you truly are, more painful? Is abandoning yourself for the sake of difficult, challenging emotions worse than actually working through this stuff and finding the right modality, finding the right teacher, finding the right processes to help you through that? And I reiterate something from what I said way back, whichever point it was. This can't help you alone. You won't heal with just mindset tricks and trying to form new habits. I promise you that. I tried it. That's why I know. And then finally, number 21, which almost sounds like a cop-out, but there truly is no final finished version of you. You're never truly healed. I once heard that we're all a masterpiece in the making, and I've grappled with this throughout my journey, throughout my decades from my former self to now. And the question comes up a lot, well, when is the work done? And the truth is, I don't think it is. We're ever evolving, we're ever changing. There never comes a point where we say, oh, I'm done. Things change even now when I do processes, when I have therapy sessions with my mentor. something new comes up. We're like a layer. I've always said we're like an onion. We peel off those layers, but what I've learned is it's like a never-ending onion. The outer layers are really hard and thick, and that's where the painful stuff is, and you have these huge shifts. But the further down we go, the more layers we peel off. They're smaller, they're finer, they're more nuanced, they're more beautiful, and you have these tiny shifts, but it's almost like final movements into inner peace. And I don't want to say like Buddha or anything like that, but you do suddenly feel more at peace, at home in your body, in this meat sack. You feel more you, and that's such a wonderful feeling, that feeling of coming home to yourself. I can't describe it, but I encourage you to find out. And if I've counted correctly, those are 21 painful truths. I hope they've been enlightening. I hope they've been interesting, and I hope they've resonated or helped something shift for you. And all I ask is that if something has moved for you, or you're interested, or you wanted to add some of your own, then please do drop me a comment below, because I'd love to hear from you. It's wonderful stuff. Have a beautiful day. Big love.